Welcome to this week's episode of Zero to a Million, brought to you by Unstack. I'm your host, Zach Rigo, and today I'm joined by Tyler Sickmeyer, CEO of Fidelitas Development, a strategic marketing partner helping brands implement omni-channel strategies. Tyler, thanks so much for joining me today.
Zach, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so for listeners, we had Chris on from CrossNet a few weeks ago. He actually talked about his experience working with Tyler, so I immediately messaged Tyler on LinkedIn and said, I got to get you on because Chris raved about you. It's not often you get a public, sponsorship or endorsement from somebody. So unpaid, I'm hoping. And I'd love to hear your journey to today and then Fidelitas and really dig into how you've partnered with brands like CrossNet to help them gain exposure and, more importantly, build their brand.
Absolutely. It's funny. It is unpaid. Maybe I should pay him if he's going to say all these kind things about me. Goodness. Make sure you cut that part out. I don't want him to hear that.
Right now,
I don't want to surprise invoice, Zach. So don't plant ideas in people's heads.
I'm getting a cut of that surprise invoice. There's no doubt about that. So.
Oh, absolutely. So just to give you a backstory. So I actually started Fidelitas over 13 years ago. Makes me feel old to say that, because time does fly, especially when you're having fun building a brand like we are. So, bootstrapped agency, headquartered out here in San Diego. We have a little office in, Boulder as well, where a lot of our, paid media team resides. But, our big thing, Zach, like we said, is it's more or less, instead of focusing on, hey, what can we sell somebody? Let's just focus on helping them and figuring out like, hey, where are they strong? Where can they use a little bit of help? And, then how can we plug in whatever disciplines or channels that we're helping with? How can we implement that into their overall marketing strategy? And that's why we're so focused on, we talk about that omni-channel flywheel, because oftentimes brands hire a savvy marketing leader internally, such as Chris or, a lot of Chris's counterparts. They come from a background where they're really, really strong in some aspects, whether that's SEO or performance media or retention marketing, et cetera. And they live and breathe in those spaces, but maybe not so much others like PR, for example, or influencer marketing, or depending on the channels, right? Everyone has their specific skill sets that they were sort of brought up in, right? And it's funny, Zach, I actually was coaching a member of our team, one of our younger members, who wants to be a marketing director someday. And she was talking about the best path to get there. And I told her, I was like, clearly the best path for you is to touch as many things as you can while you're here. And so that way you have a more well-rounded approach later. But regardless, most brands rarely have all the tools that they need in-house. That's where an agency like Fidelitas comes in. And again, we try to be that strategic partner rather than just a vendor, right? So rather than saying, hey, we'll use Chris for an example since, you name dropped him already. Instead of saying, hey, Chris, what can we sell you? Look at us. Here's the shiny object. What can you sell you? Like, let's actually get to know Chris and get to know CrossNet and figure out where they're strong, where there's opportunities for, improvement or, blue ocean to go fishing. And then how can we be a good partner to go fish in those waters together? Right. And so that's how we go about operating with all of our clients, regardless of whether we're talking about PR or performance media or retention marketing, et cetera. Obviously, our scope with CrossNet is on the PR side of things, which is a blast. I always say it's fun to work with great products. No marketer ever woke up and said, man, I can't wait to go wrap a turd in a Hershey bar wrapper and peddle it as chocolate today, right? Like everyone is very much excited to work with great products and great services versus stuff that's not. And we're fortunate enough that we're at a spot where we can choose who we work with and we can be pretty selective on that side, which is fantastic. And that gives us more opportunities to work with brands like CrossNet. And like you said, that's where the focus has been with them, is on the PR side, bringing that earned media coverage. And again, you talk about the 4 types of channels, Zach. There's paid, earned, shared, and owned. And CrossNet was already doing a phenomenal job with their paid, shared, and owned channels. And so we wanted to come in and help them out on the earned side and take that to the next level. And we've been very fortunate to have a lot of success early on with them.
Yeah, so I think I wanted you to come on to go deep there because I think Chris has done, and the CrossNet team's done a really nice job over, a 5-year period, I think, since they started tying together their first volleyball nets, and now they've actually got, a patent and have built it for real. And it's amazing the growth. And I think what's always interested me about them is they play bigger, and I think they played bigger early. I also had the founder of Felix Gray on, David, and same thing. Like, they played bigger early, and they went and got that earned media and that credibility through press. And Chris raved about kind of your strategy going to market and finding, some really big opportunities that are coming soon for them. Would love to hear your thought process on how you tell that story, how you get these media outlets excited about partnering and telling the story for you, and what your strategy is there.
Sure. So our strategy for PR is pretty different than a lot of PR shops, mainly because we're not just a PR shop, right? And we didn't set up one day and say, hey, like, let's open up a PR agency, right? Actually, PR was one of the later services that we added when we hired some talent a couple years back, and has sort of grown the business that way. But really, our approach is to personalize everything. And if you look at that, Zach, even if you Google Tyler Sickmeyer, you can see we eat our own dog food with a lot of the coverage that I've gotten. And I always say, look, if I can get TV appearances for myself as an agency owner, I can't think of a less exciting type of persona to put on TV for the general populace, right? Like, our demo might love it, right? The people listening to this podcast might love it, but your Aunt Mary in Temecula does not care what I have to say about Black Friday, right? So the fact that we can find compelling angles and get me on TV, I said, look, like, we can do this for anybody, right? So, and it all comes down to, again, understanding that WIFM factor, Zach. WIFM stands for what's in it for me. And we have to understand the WIFM factor, not just for the journalist or the producer that we're soliciting coverage from. We also have to understand it for the journalist or the producer's audience and who they're wanting to engage with, and figuring out what's that angle that our client or me, for example, or Chris or whomever we're pitching at the moment, how are they going to add value to that client at the end of or to that audience, at the end of the day. And if we can establish that value, that makes pitching way easier. And I'll tell you the other thing we do, and again, none of this is rocket science, but 90% of PRs out there refuse to do things this way, Zach, which is great, because to me, it's like table stakes. It's like saying, hey, the restaurant's going to serve my food hot, and it's not going to have an insect in it. Yeah. But a lot of places don't do things this way, and that is to personalize every single pitch. Too many PRs rely on the spray and pray method of, well, we'll throw some stuff out on the wire. We've got this email list that I curated for this other client in a similar space 2 years ago. Journalists don't move around. No one's changed jobs since COVID, so we'll just hit the same list. And we'll just mass spray and pray and see what we get. And that's how a lot of folks operate. And obviously that is not nearly as successful as going in and saying, for example, hey, Zach, I love your 0 to a Million podcast. I love how you really focus on extracting value in tangible strategies. Here's why so-and-so would be a great fit on the show. And here's some of the key takeaways that they can deliver for your audience. Right. And it's just a different way of doing things. Like, aren't you going to pay more attention to that versus, the 17th hello first name email in your inbox with why so-and-so would be a great guest, right? And so to me, it all comes down to building relationships and building trust with producers, with journalists, with editors on why we're going to bring value time and time again. And as we build those relationships, once we bring them one or two quality guests and quality appearances, they trust us, and they're more willing to take a chance on the third or fourth that we bring in down the line. I mean, heck, you think, Zach, we both have podcasts, right? So it's funny because I see it on both sides, because obviously we get pitched guests, and I know you see it. And there's a big difference with how 99% of people go about it versus how the select few go about it. But again, Zach, if someone from a PR shop brings you someone that's a really great guest for you, and then they circle back and they offer you another guest in 2 weeks or in a month or whatever, you're much more likely to take them serious on the second guest, right? Because they've already delivered that value. But if they bring you somebody and they're a train wreck, you're gonna be like, whoa, like I couldn't even run the last episode of the guy you brought me. Like, why should I take this person too? Right. So there's definitely value in taking time to build those relationships and build that trust, and making sure that, as PRs, we're supplying value to the people we're working with.
So when you meet with a client, and you're sitting with them and you identify, hey, we need to go through, PR, I think is probably the best service for us to work with you. Are you thinking about a medium as well? So, is it better to try to go and get them on news or TV because we feel like video is going to be a much better medium than, blogs or Forbes.com or whatever it may be? Like, is that a process that you're thinking about, or are y'all thinking, hey, we need a story out there, we're going to customize it to the journalist or the medium and send different emails? Or are you really kind of going really laser focused?
I mean, so we do customize for each outlet. So that's partly right. But part of it, I hate to give that nuanced answer. It depends, but it absolutely depends on what the goals of the brand are, right? So one thing we go through when we're in the dating phase with a potential client or with someone we just signed is we talk about their goals. Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to drive sales? Are you trying to enhance credibility for a new product or for a brand? Are you trying to do reputation rehab? Are you trying to prep the business to sell? It all depends on what you're trying to do, because that greatly impacts how we want to position the business in the marketplace, what outlets are most important, what winning looks like from a coverage perspective, and even what metrics we're tracking on our reporting, right? So we're very nuanced in making sure that we're aligned with the client on what their specific goals are for PR. And then that informs the rest of our strategy that we build out from.
Okay. And you mentioned building more of a relationship with the journalist, right? You're sending out emails, you get a great guest or a great story, they have success with it, which is obviously their end goal. Their audience enjoys it. Do you feel like that's the sweet sauce, like the sauce right now is just, hey, we know the folks? Because, if I remember correctly, it was like, I don't know if it was Ellen or something. Like, do you have a contact at Ellen that you can just reach out to when you feel like there's a fit? Or is that something that you were working, 100 people and tailoring it, and Ellen somehow said, you know what, this is an interesting story for our audience? Because I'm super interested on how the hell you get on Ellen, really.
So we do have a relationship there that we've cultivated.
Awesome.
But part of it, I mean, PR is networking in general. So it helps to have relationships. And if you're working with a PR pro that's not out networking and building relationships, and you probably need someone different on your PR team, candidly. I mean, heck, like even, it's funny. I texted Chris. I said, we're never off the clock. Right. So, I was at a conference in Vegas this year. Those are a thing again now, believe it or not. So
I know.
It was great to be out and I was at a networking reception as a part of that conference, and I ran into a prominent journalist from a cable network, and her literal response was, "What should I know about?" Like this is just like we're all again. This is at 10 o'clock at night in Vegas. Everyone's 3 or 4 drinks in at this point,
right?
And it's like, hey, literally, this is a prominent name that I'm not going to drop here. Asking me on the spot. Oh, go. So tell me, like, who do you work with? Like, what should we be covering right now?
Almost no one listens to this podcast. You can name drop.
I'm definitely not going to name drop.
All right.
That's how we keep the relationships, is we don't name drop. But that said, we literally pitched CrossNet on the spot to them. And part of that is like, because we know the story. It's not just our team reading from a script. Right. And I don't do the pitching on a normal day-to-day basis. Like, we've got excellent people on our team that handle that. Right, we've got an excellent team that works on Chris's account and our other PR accounts that take care of those folks. But that said, I still, as the owner, know what's going on. I still know how we're talking about our clients, and so if I'm put on the spot, I can give a decent pitch for CrossNet or for any client for that matter, right? Yeah. And so that's a big thing for us, is to be able to seize the moment and seize the opportunity when it's there. A lot of times, opportunities come in and they're very timely. And part of it is, again, this is another part of our secret sauce, Zach, is, taking time to be timely and be thorough and to be comprehensive in our responses and to get those back to the journalist in a timely fashion, or the producer or whomever. So that way we're making their job as easy as possible, and we're setting them up for success, right? Like it should be simple. Like, you can't pitch something to a journalist and then not have headshots ready to go, or not have about information ready to go, or some of the stuff that they may need. Like, you've got to have press pages built out. You've got to have ready-made resources available in a Dropbox file, in Word format, in PDF format, in whatever format they could possibly want it. I always tell people, look, gift wrapped it. Our staff will actually take time and write the story for the journalist if they want. Like, we'll do your job for you. Like, all we want at the end of the day is to make sure our client gets that coverage. And so we really do try to set it up for success. Heck, I mean, you've seen it. The best PR shops that pitch you guests, Zach, are the ones that include questions for the guests.
No titles.
It doesn't mean you're going to
titles, questions, the works.
Everything, right? It's gift wrapped. And that doesn't mean you're going to use it. But it's just the fact that it's there. And if you're struggling to come up with questions, you might use 2 or 3 or 4 of those questions. Like I try to avoid them just because it actually helps me in a different way. Like I don't want to use those questions because I don't want to have the exact same interview that everyone else has done. And so that helps me if I know, like, okay, here are the canned questions. I want to have unique questions. And my goal on our podcast, the Lion Share Marketing Podcast, our goal, Zach, is to literally get every guest to say, that's a good question at least once. Like I want to catch them off guard where like, ooh, that's a good question. You know, I don't want to just have the canned interview that we have with everybody, right? Or that they have with everybody. And so it's the same for most journalists. But if you have your crap together and you have everything gift wrapped, they're much more likely to work with you because too, that says to me as a host, if there's something I need, these guys have their house in order. They're going to be able to get me what I need, and I'm not going to be bumping up against my deadline, begging, pleading for one more quote or clarification or link or whatever it is that I'm after in that moment, right? So I'd say just make their jobs as easy as possible, and you'll definitely have more success in the long run.
So, Tyler, going off of that conversation in Vegas, right? And I think this is going to tie into like a little bit of my background in working with agencies, which I've worked with a bunch, right? You're the founder. You know the clients, you're sitting there, you're having a couple drinks, you get asked a question. That journalist knows whether or not you feel like this is a good story based on your level of excitement to talk about it. Is there some level of you picking clients accordingly? Like I think Chris is a great client, good story, knows marketing, willing to spend, growing. You know, talk me through how you think about partnering with agents or with clients when they come to you, whether it's a good fit, bad fit, and then your passion for the story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Zach, number one, we have to ask ourselves, are we going to be excited to work with them? Because if we're not, for whatever reason, sometimes it's a personality thing. Sometimes it's how they talk during the get to know you phase. Like if they're rude or untimely, it's like, okay, like if these guys aren't going to be pleasant to work with, we're just past that. Like we don't have to work with buttholes at this point. Like we're not a startup at this point. So we have a little bit more say on that side. And then two, like we've got to be sure we can help them. Like that's something during the onboarding process, we're not going to sell just to whoever will sign a contract. Like that's no way to maintain your own reputation. What you don't want running around out there is, you know, one Chris and 17. Well, it just wasn't for me. Like, you don't want that. Like our goal is to create raving fans. And, you know, for us, we're, you know, I mean, to kind of get into how the sausage is made a little bit on the agency side, we're definitely way more profitable in months 13 and 14 than we are in months 1 and 2 when it comes to a relationship with a client, because there's so much learning and catch up time and getting up to speed and building media lists from scratch and the nuance of PR or getting creative together if it's performance media or whatever the case may be, right? Like your earliest months are always the most arduous from a workload standpoint, and that's okay. We are more than comfortable eating that excess time and effort because we know it's going to pay off in the long run for the client as long as we're picking the right clients to work with. But we want to make sure that we can help whoever we sign, whoever we bring to the table, and whoever we're pitching. Again, for the joke we made earlier, Zach, about not wrapping a turd in a Hershey bar wrapper. You know, we're very fortunate to not have to do that. And frankly, if someone comes in and we don't think they're a good fit, we'll just tell them so. Like, hey, you know, we're probably not the best fit for you. So here's some places to go. And it's great because whenever that happens, a lot of times they show their true colors and they get mad and they yell at us and accuse us of things. And it's great because it's like, okay, you just proved my point that you would have been an absolute train wreck to work with. So thank you. If anything, it validates the decision, right? So we make sure we work with great people. They don't necessarily have to be camera ready. A lot of times folks come in and that's one thing they're nervous about is, oh, maybe I know I need PR, but I'm not sure I can be the one in front of the camera. That's okay. Like we do media training for those that need it. You know, some folks like Chris is a natural. He can sit there and do interviews all day long and twice on Sunday. And there are some folks that aren't wired that way, right? And so we need to put them through media training and get them ready, or whomever the spokesperson is going to be for their business. We need to get them ready. I remember one time there was a client, we were doing a campaign and the CEO is very private. And so I actually went on as a spokesperson for the company because they didn't have a spokesperson at that time. And it was a very it was a publicly traded company, which is why the CEO didn't want to show his face, just because you get all sorts of like weird, crazy activist investors like sending nasty grams and everything else. Like, why did the stock go down 5 cents today? You know, so like you just try to avoid, you try to avoid that as much as possible. So they had me go out and be the sacrificial lamb. But they didn't have an internal comms director.
Your Twitter was getting the tweets and why it went down. I said, "Why you guys rolled this guy out and the stock went down?"
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly, right? So
I think that there's two things you said though, real quick, that I've got to tell the audience members. If you are a merchant and you're looking for an agency and they tell you they're not a fit, one, that's a good agency, but two, they're doing right by you. They might be telling you you're not a good fit because of size, scope, or something else as well. So don't take that as a bad thing. That's actually helpful. And two, most agencies aren't profitable for a long time on their services. So if they do have a contract, it's because it's what's best for their business. But also, you know, if they don't have a contract, that's, you know, green light. Like, they're super confident they're going to do great work for you because they really aren't turning a profit until months 5, 6, 7 typically, and sometimes longer depending upon the services. Yeah. Those are both true statements just from my experience working with agencies.
So Zach, I will take advantage of that as an opportunity to sort of plug Fidelitas and how we operate. All of our clients can opt out at any time with 30 days written notice. We absolutely stand behind what we do. I always tell people, especially on the PR side, or if we're talking SEO, it's like, look, like we're not going to have results in month 1. We might be able to peel off some quick wins or be able to show you some stuff, but more often than not, it's going to take a couple of months for us to build some momentum and to get you some tangible results. And we have a plan. Here's how we're going to execute it, but it's going to take time. And so we tell people, like, look, if you're going to hire us, be prepared for it to take a couple months to get everything up and rolling, and for you to get some tangible results. But we're also very transparent about that. And our goal is if someone's like, well, I need results turnkey, I say, okay, well, maybe we should talk about performance media, or maybe you should talk to another agency then, because PR is not a turnkey channel, and anyone that's telling you it is full of it. Right. And so we're very intentional on that side. But again, like all of our clients, even though we tell them it can take months, if they start with us and 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, we want to bounce. This isn't for us. Can't stand Tyler's dad jokes, whatever the case may be. Like, we're out. If that's the case, it's okay. Like, you know, we're totally fine with that. So we want to make sure we stand behind our work. And the worst thing that you could ever have, again, when it comes to managing your own brand, and heck, I'd say the same thing if there's anybody that's in the SaaS space listening in, the worst thing you can have is someone that feels stuck with your service. There's a certain PR software that I won't name because they did acquiesce to my demands, but they sort of sold us a bill of goods with what the software was capable of doing and what it actually could do. And so we were supposed to be making them quarterly payments on this year-long subscription. And I just said, look, we're not making another payment. You can cancel us today. And they're like, well, you have a year-long contract. I said, okay. I said, we do a lot of podcasts. I said, I speak on the circuit. I said, I'm going to make a point to call you out at every single event that we're both at.
Right.
Until you make me whole. And then all of a sudden, and then I'm like, Google me. And so they did. And the next day we were out of the contract. It worked out okay. Yeah. Right. And so that's the thing. Like, the worst thing you could ever have is a customer or a client to feel stuck. Like, that's, you just don't want that. So we don't operate that way on our side either.
So, last question I have for you on the PR front is you mentioned kind of the ramp time, right? Like, you're probably going to get a couple singles early, and then you're starting to build a little momentum. You're having conversations. You go to Vegas, you're partying, you bump into, you know, it starts to compound, right? That's how it all works. We buy your trips.
Your listeners are literally going to think that your listeners are literally going to think that they have to expense me to Vegas to get anything done.
I'll fly you to Vegas if you can get me on the right shows. That's a fair trade. But when you think about that, right, the flywheel effect is sometimes the more impactful. You know, like, you can get this bump, but that bump is great. It comes back down pretty quick, and then you kind of move on to the next plateau. Strategies that you're thinking about anytime you know that one of those bumps are coming, to make sure you're optimizing on the back end. Just things that people should be thinking about if they're going to go for this home run. How do we optimize on the back end to make sure we're getting some tangible, you know, long-term results?
Absolutely. I'd say first and foremost, you got to make sure you have your house in order, right? And so if you know you're going to get a bump in coverage, because ideally you're agency is giving you a heads up and you do know that in advance. But
right.
If you know you're going to get a bump or a celebrity's going to be seen with your product or you're going to be on some show, like for example, like I'm sure after coming on your podcast, Zach, we're going to get an extra, probably a couple tens of thousands of hits this week. So we'll make sure, for example, at Fidelitas, we'll make sure that our website can handle the tons of excess traffic you're going to send our way. And two, we're going to make sure that our email flows and everything are set up properly and that our sales team is ready to handle inbound leads, et cetera. We just want to make sure that we're ready to take advantage of the moment, right? And it's the same for any client. I always say, look, like, make sure your product's in stock. Like, for example, like CrossNet, the worst thing that could happen, like we get on Ellen and then like they don't have product available anywhere. Like that would be a nightmare, right? It's like, well, that was fun. We shot our shot and I don't know how much of a bump we're going to see from that. Right. So you only have a limited amount of time where you command your audience's attention. That's all we all do as marketers anyways, right? Is we day trade attention. So it's important to make sure that when you are seizing attention, that you're making the most of it. So I'd say number one, first and foremost, make sure that you have your house in order. And then number two, make sure that your entire team is briefed on the strategy and is ready to take advantage of it. So for example, like Chris is a great example because we don't handle his performance marketing or his retention marketing. He's got other agencies that handle that. They both do a fine job. But it's important that they know what we're doing and vice versa because any earned media coverage that we get should be touted in CrossNet's email campaigns and should be touted in their performance media for as seen on to move people through the middle of funnel. And I'm sure they're leveraging that to their benefit, right? Because the left hand's talking to the right hand and Chris is very astute at knowing how to connect the dots between the different channels. But it's important for every marketing leader listening in here or founder that's considering how to grow their business. Don't let your channels operate on islands. You know, we talk about literally, I love you use the two of my favorite words, omni-channel and flywheel, Zach. We're big believers in an omni-channel flywheel. You know, earned media. I literally just had this conversation with one of our future clients about an hour before we got on this call, Zach, with making sure that anything that we do from a PR side helps improve paid media performance, helps improve SEO, et cetera, right? And so even on the SEO side, and this is where you don't really see many PR agencies do this because most PR agencies, if they're going to branch into other services, they typically go to social because it's literally the easiest thing to hire. They'll say, the intern can handle the social. Like they'll bring on an intern like, hey, you're our social media person. So, and then they're going out to clients like, guess what? We do social, right? But you don't see as many PR agencies dive into performance or SEO because they're technical. Most PRs are wired like I am, which is extremely right-brained, creative, big ideas, relationships-oriented. They're super fun to see at parties. Whereas most of your SEOs or true paid media pros or developers, they're more left-brained, right? Like they just want to be left alone. Just let me do my work. I want to do a great job. They're very technical in their work, right? So just naturally, we're talking about two people wired very differently. And it's a lot harder for someone right-brained, if you don't have the proper training or people on your team to help with that, to hire and train and manage a very technical team underneath you. So you don't see a lot of PR agencies dive into SEO or paid media for that reason. You see them dive into social like we talked about. But the benefits of having PR and SEO talk to each other and work together and collaborate, whether that's because the CMO at the brand is driving it or whether it's because the agency does both and understands it and they play nice together or whatever the case may be. But if you have those two sides talking to each other, anytime something goes out on the wire, you're going to get some great links and you're going to get some really trashy links. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of putting something on the wire. But if the PR team lets the SEO team know when something goes out on the wire, the SEO team can disavow those toxic backlinks the same day. You don't even risk getting penalized by Google, right? And likewise, the SEO team is going to say, hey, we got these brand mentions here. We don't know this journalist, but you guys probably do. Can you reach out and beg them for a followed link? And again, most PRs don't know to ask for followed links, but SEO teams do. So the more you get those two sides to work together, the better off they're going to be. The SEO team can also provide better analysis than most PRs are going to grab. So I always say, look, like the more you get your teams to work together and cross-pollinate ideas and information, the better off you're going to be. And the more momentum you're going to have behind that omni-channel flywheel at the end of the day, which is why it's so important to take the time and connect the dots between your teams.
Yeah, those are really important points. I think the two that I'd add to kind of fill in the gaps there, but you nailed, like, we've had the challenge of the backlinks, right? We've done some PR. I think following up with content too, a blog post of Chris's experience on the Ellen show, which I'm sure he'll do a newsletter about. His email newsletter is coming at me every week, and he's done a great job of, being in front and creating kind of that founder content, which is what I've subscribed to. But, a blog post about being on there or talking about it or the experience on it. And then obviously you mentioned performance marketing. I think a PPC with PR strategy is always really key, because the search volume is going to go bananas in one way or the other. And you either need to be adding negative keywords for Ellen for a time being, and then maybe bidding on Ellen, or vice versa, getting more strategic around it. So, everyone listening, Tyler's spot on. Like, make sure these are not in silos. And if the PR team is outsourced, get them in touch with other folks. And your agencies, if they're not willing to talk to each other, that's childish games, and they're not, they don't have your best interest in mind, which I've actually seen happen as well, which is crazy.
Call us instead.
Yeah. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me today. Last question I ask every guest, and I told you the last question was the last question, but this is the real one. Marketing trend in e-commerce you're most excited about for the next 12 months, where you're like, whether you think it's going to be great or not, just something you're really excited to dive into and test.
The increased diversification of channels. As you know, Zach, you can't live and breathe on Facebook ads anymore. And the brands that are hand to mouth there are figuring that out time and time again, that they've got to diversify into other channels, whether that's earned media, shared channels, whether that's different paid platforms like TikTok, or Pinterest is a great one that a lot of people sleep on when it comes to commerce. There's a reason why PayPal's trying to buy them right now, right? Like that's they see the writing on the wall when it comes to shoppable commerce. So to me, it's more about figuring out, okay, how can we take things to the next level? The set it and forget it days of we're just going to run Facebook ads and hope that drives our traffic, and we're going to go as our performance marketing goes. Like, that's kind of gone, right? You can't do that anymore, which is exciting, because it provides an opportunity and an alley for innovators to really separate themselves from the competition that doesn't. So I think we're going to see a whole new wave of winners and losers, and there's going to be some surprise losers that people are like, wait, weren't they like twice the size of those other guys? And then they end up getting their lunch eaten. And that's going to happen. And you're going to have some challenger brands that take larger and larger market share because they have savvier marketing teams that are willing to think outside the box and use influencers in different ways and put their content out on different channels and invest in linear commerce and driving great content that drives sales as well. So, and again, PR can definitely be a part of that, as well as guest article placements, listicles, et cetera. Like there's so many tactics that a lot of times get written off as, well, that's SEO and we don't need SEO. Like, well, that's paid media and we already do paid media. No, you do Facebook and Instagram, right? Like, you don't do Google Shopping. You don't do Pinterest. You don't do TikTok. Your influencers aren't being leveraged into your own paid media. You're not whitelisting with a program like #paid or something similar. Like, you haven't connected the dots. And so the marketing leaders that can take the time and connect the dots, Zach, are going to win. And I think we're going to see a whole new wave of winners and losers in the very near future.
Yeah, you're seeing it already on the Facebook stuff, with a lot of folks complaining or talking about their CPMs going way up, and I think that's because they weren't curating content, they weren't building an own channel with email or SMS, and they've now figured out, it's too late now. What do I do? So we've talked about that in every episode. So I'm hoping our listeners are really well informed that they need to start building that own channel really quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then even beyond that too, right? So it's okay. So you build your own media, and okay, what's going to be your next way to acquire that audience, right? Is it an influencer collaboration, with an earned media outlet? Is it, driving, paid ads from a different channel? Figure out where it's one thing to have own media and have a sound strategy, and you can have the best flows in the world, written by the best copywriters and email marketers. But if you're not driving traffic to sign up for those lists, and you're not building out that database of potential customers, what good's it doing you, right? It's sort of like if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around, does it make a sound? Like, well, does an email flow convert if you don't have a list? So make sure that you don't neglect list building in general. And that's one thing we talk about a lot, Zach. I'll wrap on this, and just for people to think about, if you're using an email marketing software like Klaviyo or something else that has actual intellectual data and insights baked into it, you get stats and KPIs like revenue per email on an annual basis. And then you can net that out to your net rev per email when you figure everything out. And if you have that net rev per email number figured out, you should be running CPL campaigns on any channel until you are blue in the face, as long as you are profitable, right? So if your net rev per email is $1.20 and you can acquire emails at 80 cents a piece, like shove money into that machine as fast as your investors will let you, and then you'll reap the rewards in the long run. That to me is a better use of it, rather than, hey, we're going to get a shot in the arm, we're going to get a quick sale today, and then maybe we have customer data, or maybe we're still funneling stuff through Amazon, so we don't have that data. Like there's a lot of wrinkles to it. So I just figure out, how do you own as much of your customer data first party as possible, and then that'll put you in a good position long term.
Totally. Love it. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can everyone find you, connect with you, and learn more about Fidelitas? Absolutely.
So I'm on Twitter at @Sickmeyer, TSICKMEYER. Also, our website is fidelitasdevelopment.com. Fidelitas is FIDELITAS development.com. And like I said, we're not the right fit for everybody, but the folks we are the right fit for love us, and we love working for them. We've got a great team. So make sure you go check us out. And also, if you're looking to maybe switch teams, check us out. We're hiring. So, always got to throw that plug in there too. So,
yeah,
awesome.
No, that's a good one.
Thanks for
Tyler. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Zach.